The headlines today finally confirm what many suspected for the last year, because Kevin Hunter is officially broke and completely alone in 2026. This is the moment Wendy Williams fans have been waiting for since the dramatic fallout of their marriage years ago. You see, the public expectation was that Kevin would live off his massive divorce settlement forever, while Wendy struggled with her health and financial guardianship. But the reality is a complete reversal of fortune that involves a series of legal traps and a massive oversight in their original separation agreement. We are looking at a story that covers a 7-year downfall that culminated in a devastating court order filed just 48 hours ago. If you look at the South Florida Civil Court docket from January 2nd, 2026, you will see the final dismissal of Kevin Hunter's latest appeal for alimony, which effectively cuts off his last remaining lifeline of income. This document proves that the man who once controlled a multi-million-dollar media empire is now facing a zero balance in the accounts that used to fund his lavish lifestyle. To understand how we got to this point of total financial collapse, we have to look at the 3 biggest questions surrounding this case. First, how did a man who was once entitled to tens of thousands of dollars a month end up with nothing? Second, why did his legal team fail to protect his primary assets from being seized by creditors? And third, what happened to the support system he built with the money he took from the Williams estate? Today, we are breaking down the granular timeline of this bankruptcy and the specific hidden clauses that Wendy's legal team used to ensure she got the last laugh. Before we get to the biggest bombshell of the week, we have to talk about the lifestyle drain that started this downward spiral. Most people believe Kevin was doing fine because he was still posting photos with luxury cars and designer clothes, but the receipts show a very different story. By mid-2024, Kevin's legal fees had already surpassed the $1.2 million mark. He was fighting a multi-front war against the banks and Wendy's court-appointed guardian. According to filings from the Florida Circuit Court in October 2025, Kevin had stopped making payments on his high-end property in Coral Springs. This wasn't just a missed payment or two. This was a systematic failure to maintain the property taxes and the mortgage interest that had ballooned after his initial alimony was suspended in 2022. He was spending money like he still had the Wendy Williams show production checks coming in, but that well had run dry years ago. The records indicate that between 2023 and 2025, Kevin attempted to sell off several luxury watches and pieces of jewelry that were originally purchased during the height of the daytime talk show run. Local auction houses in South Florida reported that a specific diamond-encrusted watch was shopped around for less than half of its appraised value just to cover a single month of legal retainers. This was the first sign that the fortress of wealth he built was actually a house of cards. When you look at the monthly maintenance costs for his estate, combined with the mounting back taxes, it becomes clear that he was bleeding nearly $50,000 a month with no new revenue coming in. Now we have to address the most shocking revelation in this entire saga, which is the hidden ghost clause in the 2019 divorce settlement. This is the #1 reason Kevin is currently sitting in a rented apartment with no assets to his name. Back when the divorce was being finalized, Wendy's lawyers inserted a specific provision regarding the longevity of the Debmar Mercury production payments. Most people thought Kevin was a permanent partner in that revenue stream, but the clause stated that if Wendy was no longer able to physically or mentally perform her duties for a period exceeding 24 months, any secondary executive payouts to Kevin would be subject to immediate termination. Because Wendy was placed under a permanent guardianship and has not returned to a commercial broadcast set in years, the legal trigger was pulled. Kevin's lawyers tried to argue that this was a bad faith move, but the court ruled in late 2025 that the contract was clear. He wasn't just losing future money, he was actually found liable for overpayments made during the transition period. This meant that instead of receiving a check, he was suddenly served with a bill for 6 figures. The nuance of this legal battle is found in the hundreds of pages of deposition transcripts, where Kevin claimed he was entitled to a lifetime of support because of his role as an executive producer was contingent on the active production of the show. Once the show was dissolved and the star was no longer working, the contractual obligation to the ex-husband evaporated. This was a masterclass in long-term legal strategy by Wendy's original team. They knew her health was a variable, and they built a trap that would protect her assets if she ever lost her ability to generate income. Kevin signed those papers years ago, likely assuming that Wendy would always be the breadwinner, but he effectively signed away his long-term security the moment he agreed to that 24-month window. The second most shocking part of this reality check involves Kevin's personal life and the abandonment he experienced as the money evaporated. For years, the public saw Kevin and his partner, Sharina Hudson, building a life together on the heels of the scandal that broke Wendy's heart. But as of January 2026, local reports and social media activity confirm that the couple has split and Sharina has moved out of their shared residence. Insider sources close to the family say that the stress of the mounting debt and the loss of their primary residence was the final straw. When the luxury lifestyle was no longer sustainable, the foundation of that relationship crumbled. This leaves Kevin in a position where he has no spouse, no partner, and no massive support system to fall back on. He went from having a dedicated wife who built a $100 million brand to a man who was literally searching for his next legal defense fund. The breakdown of this relationship is particularly telling when you look at the timeline of the property foreclosures. As soon as the bank moved to seize the Coral Springs home in November 2025, Sharina was spotted moving boxes into a smaller condominium in a different county. There was no public statement and no dramatic social media post because the silence spoke for itself. The luxury lifestyle that was funded by Wendy's hard work could not be maintained by Kevin's dwindling savings. This is the reality of the situation that many people saw coming, but Kevin refused to acknowledge. He believed he was the talent and the brains behind the operation, but without the face of the franchise, he was just another manager with a bad reputation and an empty wallet. Moving to the third point of this breakdown, we have to look at the professional bridges Kevin burned during his time as Wendy's manager. In the world of Hollywood, your reputation is your currency, and Kevin spent his currency very poorly. In 2025, he tried to launch a talent management firm in an attempt to regain his footing, but industry veterans refused to work with him. According to a report by Variety in November of last year, major agencies issued an informal blacklist because of his history of aggressive contract negotiations and the cloud of the Williams guardianship case. He thought he could use the same tactics he used on Wendy to bully other networks into deals, but without Wendy's star power, he had no leverage. He was essentially trying to sell a product that didn't exist anymore, and the market responded with a resounding no. This professional isolation is what led to his final financial surrender. He attempted to pitch a reality show based on his life as a single father and former mogul, but the feedback from the networks was brutal. They didn't want the baggage of his past, and they certainly didn't want to deal with the legal headaches that come with his ongoing litigation. The doors that once flew open for Kevin Hunter were now being slammed and locked. He spent years making enemies in the industry, and now those enemies are the ones in positions of power. This is the granular detail that people often miss when they talk about celebrity downfalls. It isn't just about the money in the bank, it is about the access to future opportunities. By 2026, Kevin had zero access and zero allies in the media world. The financial breakdown gets even more specific when you look at the 2025 tax filings that were reportedly leaked in a recent creditor hearing. Kevin was reportedly carrying a debt of over $400,000 to the Internal Revenue Service. This debt was a carryover from the years where he was mismanaging the joint accounts he shared with Wendy. When the guardianship took over her finances, the accountants performed a forensic audit that uncovered years of missing funds and unpaid tax liabilities. Instead of those debts being settled by Wendy, the court ruled that because Kevin was the primary manager of those specific accounts, he was personally liable for the shortfall. This was the final nail in the coffin. He wasn't just fighting to get more money, he was fighting to keep from going to prison for tax evasion. This forced him to liquidate his remaining retirement accounts, which are now completely depleted. Every single safety net he thought he had was stripped away by the very government agencies he tried to avoid for a decade. The irony of the situation is that the more he fought for Wendy's money, the more he exposed his own financial misconduct, which led to more fines and more legal fees. Finally, we have to discuss the physical toll this has taken on the Hunter family legacy. Kevin's son, Kevin Jr., has reportedly distanced himself from the situation as he tries to maintain his own private life and relationship with his mother. This adds a layer of emotional bankruptcy to the financial one. Kevin Sr. is now in a position where he is fighting for scraps of an estate that he once co-managed. The timeline shows that in December 2025, he attempted to file one last motion to access Wendy's personal jewelry and memorabilia to sell at auction, but the Guardian blocked it within 24 hours. The judge noted that Kevin had no legal claim to Wendy's personal effects and warned him that further frivolous filings would result in sanctions. He is quite literally at the end of the road. Even his attempts to capitalize on his own story through a tell-all book have stalled. Publishers are reportedly wary of the legal ramifications of printing his version of events, especially given Wendy's protected status under the guardianship. He cannot even sell his own story because the story belongs to a brand that he no longer owns or controls. He is a man with a story that no one wants to buy and a lifestyle that no one wants to fund. The transition from a multi-million-dollar mogul to a man with a negative net worth is a cautionary tale of greed and a lack of foresight. While Wendy Williams is living a quiet life focused on her recovery, her ex-husband is facing the harsh reality of a world that no longer owes him a living. The receipts don't lie, and the court documents from this week are the final proof that the revenge of Wendy Williams was served not with a loud shout, but with a silent bank account and an empty house. Kevin thought he could outlast the system, but the system was designed by people who were much smarter than him. He underestimated the power of the guardianship and the ironclad nature of the contracts he signed in a rush to get out of the marriage. Every move he made since 2019 has been a desperate attempt to recapture a glory that was never truly his to begin with. He was a steward of someone else's talent, and when that talent was removed from his control, he had nothing of his own to sustain him. The public might see this as a tragedy, but for many, it is the ultimate form of poetic justice. As we look toward the rest of 2026, the story of Kevin Hunter serves as a reminder that fame is fleeting and the money that comes with it is even faster if you don't treat the people who helped you earn it with respect. The final status of his bank accounts is a reflection of the way he managed his relationships. He is at a zero balance because he gave zero value to the marriage that made him a millionaire. He is alone because he prioritized a lifestyle of luxury over the woman who actually provided it. This entire saga is a masterclass in what happens when a parasite loses its host. For Kevin Hunter, the party is officially over and the lights have been turned off. He is left in the dark, wondering where it all went wrong, while the rest of the world watches as he learns the hard way that you cannot build a future on a foundation of betrayal. In summary, Kevin Hunter is currently navigating a world where he has no home of his own, no luxury fleet, and no one standing by his side to help him rebuild. The $500,000 a year he thought was guaranteed is gone. The fame he tried to pivot into is non-existent, and the family he thought he was building is fractured. This is the ultimate reality check for a man who thought he was the architect of the Wendy Williams empire, when in reality, he was just a passenger who forgot to pay his fare. This entire situation proves that when the cameras stop rolling and the checks stop clearing, you find out who your real friends are very quickly. For Kevin, that number turned out to be 0. If you want to see the full pattern of how these celebrity estates are managed and why so many stars are losing their fortunes, check out our Fresh Celebrity playlist for the latest deep dives into the industry's biggest money secrets.